Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to this Change Now workshop on plant-based food at the heart of a healthier future. My name is Christophe Dirksens. I'm in charge of global public affairs at Too Good To Go, and I'll be moderating today's workshop. In our discussion today, we will try to deepen our understanding of the challenge of stepping up the transition towards a sustainable and resilient food supply, where plant-based foods are at the core of the food transition. And with us to discuss this important topic today are four excellent speakers, namely Ève Fouilleux, who is Research Director at the CNRS, the French National Center for Scientific Research, and also researcher at CIRAD, the French Agricultural Research Center for International Development. Welcome, Ève. We have Anne-Sophie Fontaine, who is Head of Sustainability and Corporate Communication at Bonduelle. We have Emmanuel Cousy, who's European Marketing Director Food Service at Bonduelle. And finally, we have Jean-François Archambault, who is Executive Director and founder at La Tablée des Chefs, which is a charity that feeds people in need and also develops culinary education for the youth. Each of the speakers will speak for about 5 or 10 minutes, depending on which speaker. And at the end of the four interventions, we will make sure to have time to answer some of the questions you may have for the speakers. So I'd kindly like to ask you to save your questions and interventions for the end of the workshop. Thank you very much. And without further ado, we will first hear from Ève, who will tell us more about agriculture as an essential element to ensure a successful food transition. Ève, the floor is yours.
I will argue that, yes, increasing the share of plant-based products in our diet is a necessary change. We definitely eat far too much meat and animal products, which are at least 3 main types of problematic consequences, which I will describe as a sort of introduction. First, the incidence of food-related diseases has been exploding everywhere, especially in developed countries, with the high rates of obesity, cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, a number of cancers, which are related to excess of meat and animal products, and also to excess of sugar and processed foods. Second, the meat and animal products we eat are produced in industrial production unit mostly, in which animals are concentrated and subjected to conditions of great violence. And in addition, they are treated with insecticides and antibiotics, which are increasingly problematic in terms of public health and biodiversity threats. Third, the production of feedstuff for these animals that we eat or whom we eat the products takes up to 70% of the world's agricultural land. And in Europe, animals are largely fed with imported soy, which involves the destruction of Latin American forests with all the negative impacts we know in terms of biodiversity loss and climate change, which also threaten the health of workers there and rural inhabitants due to the massive use of pesticides which are used in soy production. So yes, vegetalizing our food is indeed an indispensable and urgent term. We must reduce consumption of animal products, and therefore the share of agricultural land which are devoted to animal feed. We must replace industrial meat by vegetables, legumes, and eat meat coming only from small-scale grass-fed or free-range farms that promote animal welfare and biodiversity. And we must also reassert the value of plant-based cuisine, especially legumes, but not only legumes, vegetables in general, and we must make them more trendy and more prestigious for the consumer. So my message is really to vegetalize the food, but it's also, and perhaps especially, that this shift towards more plant-based food cannot be made things being equal. I mean, increasing the production and consumption of plant-based food needs to go together with a radical shift of agricultural production and food processing methods. We definitely cannot continue to eat fruits, vegetables, cereals, and legumes produced with chemical products because they simply threaten our health, the health of the planet, and the future condition of farming itself. Mineral fertilizers, provoke soil infertility and erosions. Pesticides provoke a massive destruction of biodiversity, and in particular pollinating insects, which are so important for agriculture. And herbicides, insecticides, and antibiotics provoke different types of resistances, which are threats for our health and biodiversity too. So the big problem in this is that chemical products and chemistry in general are the core, are the heart of the current model of agriculture. They allow a lot of characteristics of this model, in particular specialization. In particular, mineral fertilizer allows separation between crops and livestock, or concentration of animals. Insecticides, for instance, allow this and antibiotics allow this concentration of animals, or monoculture, to which are allowed by herbicides, etc. So we need to get rid of this chemistry, but without chemistry, we will have to do things differently. We'll have to fertilize differently. We'll have to manage crop diseases differently, crop competitors and predators differently. We'll need smaller plots, the return of hedges, the recoupling of animal and plant production, diversification of agricultural activities. This we will have to do, but this is possible. Actually, agroecological and organic techniques and farmers have proven for years that we can produce while respecting life and health by generating positive externalities, more positive externalities than negative ones. And for instance, from a social point of view, this will imply to create new jobs in rural and agricultural areas. And this can be clearly seen, for instance, in statistics of organic farming, which creates much more jobs than in conventional farming. So this implies also reconstructing social link within social areas. So in short, we need to replace chemistry in agriculture by agronomy and agroecological knowledge and techniques, and by jobs. And this is certainly a big shift, but this is a big shift that will need the efforts of everybody in the food chain. And first of all, the farmers, of course, the farmers in the first place, and the pioneers of organic agriculture have shown the way, but in that time they took a risk. And this really should not any longer be the case. The economic and policy environment should really allow and even incentivize everyone to move in this direction. So things have to be changed. So just a warning, farmers are the first, in the first rank, in the first row, but not everything can be rested on the shoulders of farmer. The other actors are very important too. Of course, public authorities and public policies must take their part. They must seriously reorient the support of for agriculture towards agroecological and practices, and rewarding good practices and really banning bad ones. They must resist lobbying, etc. This is a big part of the job. Second, the research and training must also contribute, and to do so, they must be done differently in a more bottom-up way. Farmers are the ones who know best the specificity of their terroirs and their land, and research should be inspired by research rather than the other way around. And that means that we really need to move from this from large, universal, one-size-fits-all, top-down solutions. And we must find solutions which are adapted locally to each situation. Another important point are the industries and retailers. They also must do their job in this, and that means that they will have to design new transformation processes that can handle a greater diversity of less standardized raw materials on smaller scales. They will have to learn to work with smaller, perhaps more numerous, more dispersed supplier groups of farmers. They will also have to perhaps set up smaller unit productions that will be more dispersed over the territory. They will have, obviously, and this is a big point, to accept to pay producers better. We will have to move towards fairer conditions in terms of bargaining in the value chain, and especially with farmers, with longer-term contracts, etc. In terms of food consumption, they have to be really conscious that They are the active shapers of what is called the food environment, which strongly influences the consumer's choices. And they will have to really actively transform this food environment to facilitate a real access and a large access to healthy, fair, and environmental friendly food for everybody. So there are many other points, but I'm sure that Bonduelle will present how they see their part in all this transformation, and that's very important, and I'm very interested in this. And last but not least, the consumers. The consumers who are also citizens, who are often told that they have to accept to pay more for food products, and this is for sure that's important. But we have to remember that it's really not possible for everybody, because many people are very in very precarious economic and food situations. Secondly, we have to underline that in fact consumers pay little for their food, that's sure, but as taxpayer they also pay heavily for the environmental and health damages and social costs which are associated to industrial chemical production methods, and these costs are huge. So we have to rethink about all this cost repartition. And another important point is that to get them on board in the agroecological transition, we'll need to include them in the governance of food systems. Consumers must not be reduced to those who only validate through their buying choices the offers which are made to them. We need to invent new forms of food democracy, which involve citizens at local level to build together tomorrow's food systems for the future. So in short, to conclude, I would say let's vegetalize our food, let's green it, but for this, let's get out of chemical agriculture. This will allow us to fight climate change, to counter the 6th mass extension of biodiversity, which is underway, and this will, as I said, allow us to revitalize our countryside. So hopefully all this together will avoid us too dark upcoming political futures. That was my point. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the attention.
Thank you, Eve. Thank you for setting the scene for this discussion, and thank you for drawing attention to the different agroecological changes that are required to drive this transition towards more plant-based diets. I now give the floor to Anne-Sophie, and Anne-Sophie will explain to us how Bonduelle is really at the heart of these agroecological, and food transitions, and is also helping to accelerate the transitions.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks to Eve as well to have made this introduction. I'm very interested by all this topic, as in Bonduelle, you know, we are a family-owned business company. We started 160 years ago by being very involved in all the chain. I mean, from the field to the plate. We develop vegetables first and now plant-based production, respecting both environment and people. So in the DNA of the company, in the shareholders' values, for sure, we used to say that the nature is the main asset of the company. So I cannot agree more with Eve that, of course, we are an agro-industrial, but our main asset is the field. Is in the field and is the job we do together with our farmers partners since years now. Our mission, I will tell you now, has been reformulated a few months ago, but it was already in the DNA of the company since ever. We say that we inspire the transition toward plant-based diet to contribute to people well-being and planet health. So we are in the core of the topics that I have just mentioned before. It means that we have decided to face and really to meet and to take our part in 3 big challenges. The first big challenge we are facing today is a food transition. I will come back to this later. So we have to accelerate the food transition that Eve mentioned. Yes, we have to vegetalize the way we feed the people today, because it will not be possible to do something else. The second transition we want to contribute to is the agroecological transition. And this is something that we do since years as well. So I'm going to come more in detail on this topic. And the third transition we really want to take a part on, this is a socio-economic transition. But this is not the topic of this session, but we are involved in some projects such as B Corp in Bonduelle. So let's talk now about the core of our discussion today. This is a relationship that agro-industry can have with the farmers. In Bonduelle, already at the end of the 90s, we created our first agroeconomical charter, and we wrote at that time the first CSR policies. What we really wanted to do and what we do together with our growers since years, this is really to help them and to support them and test with them some what we call diversified form of agriculture. Of course, our main goal, and this is what I've mentioned before, is to protect the soil from erosion, from compaction, to preserve biodiversity, and all the topics that we are working on since years, far before it was really a climate emergency raising since 2 years now. And it means that we have developed already a lot of new techniques. We are involved with our farmers and with our teams in order really to help to make this famous agroecology a reality and to adapt it to each region of the world where we are working on. So it means that we are not farmers. We are only farmers in a few places on the world, but we consider that as an agro-industrial, we have to play a part. So we invest and we work together a lot in order to try solution and to find solution to adapt the model of agriculture. As you mentioned, you are right, we have to adjust it. I'm not sure that we have to change everything, but we will have to adapt for sure and to make sure that we will find the right solution in order to be able to deliver this vegetalized food that we need. And of course, one of the key goals is to reduce chemical nitrogen fertilization. We agree on that, Eve, you know that. So this is one of the first goals of the company. Today, farmers, we know, are coming under increasing number of constraints. You mentioned it as well. And on top of that, we have increasingly weather condition impact on our crop and on our culture. So it means that as an agro-industrial, since ever, we have really decided to play a role, and we need Eve mentioned before that we have to work together with the industry, retailers, farmers. I totally agree with that. We are not going to solve the issue alone, neither farmers alone, neither retailers alone, neither public alone. So we have really to create this kind of collaboration. A concrete example, last year, we have set up in Bonduelle collaboration to collectively finance and try to find a way to finance the effort of the farmers. So we have set up last year a repricing agreement together with the retailers, and we shared the value of this repricing agreement with the farmer. It's a beginning, we are at the starting point, but it means that we really need to find a way to rethink the full value chain. So this is something, and I think one of the parts that an agro-industrial can play in this change and require change to make the plant-based diet possible in the region and in the developed countries especially. Another topic, which is food transition. I mentioned it before. Of course, this is something core. We have a role to play to make it easy to eat every day, everywhere with plant-based diet. But what we must know is that it's not easy at all. Today, there are some real barriers to be able to move and to change the way we eat and to put let's say, the plant-based diet in the middle of the plate. We know that plant-based cooking is not easy. and it's perceived as very complicated. That's why, beside and beyond the product offer that we develop in Bonduelle, we have decided to change and to do something else. I'm going to give the floor, if you agree, to Emmanuel Couzy, who is going to explain now what kind of offer an industrial like Bonduelle can do in order to promote this plant-based diet. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you, Anne-Sophie. And you're right. We are all facing many challenges to succeed this food transition. And we heard Eve and you, Anne-Sophie. And at Bonduelle, we play our role in the field, as exposed by Anne-Sophie, and also in the kitchen. We are aware, we know how challenging is this ambition, as since we were children, animal proteins are in the center of the plate and vegetables on the edge. And except in some countries like in India, where we know that 40% of the population is already vegetarian, all over the world, the animal proteins are in the center of the plate, and we grew up with that. It means that it is a revolution that we have to operate all together, a revolution to make this shift to plant-based food happen in the real life, in the plate of everybody in all the countries in the world. This change has started. If we consider that the young generation, the 12-35 years, are already 12% that are vegetarian, comparing to the 50 years old and plus, we only have 2% of vegetarian. It means that the change has started, and it is a positive, and we have a journey to achieve all together. At Bonduelle, we believe that the chefs, the professional of catering, of restaurants, have a strong influence, a strong responsibility in this journey, because they lead the way, they inspire. They have the capability to onboard all the people, the largest number of people, to make it happen in all the kitchen, in all the plates. And this is really our challenge. So we know that the high-level chef, I would say, the 3 stars, have taken the floor, and they show the example. They have already made this shift, putting vegetable, green, plant-based diet in the center of their menu. It's now time to expand it, to make it happen in all the kitchens. It means in all the restaurants, independent, in all the fast food, in all the canteens, the hospitals, etc., in the day-to-day life, I would say. And that's the reason why we have at Bonduelle for 50 years now, more than 50 years, a team of experts, of culinary advisors, who visit every day our clients in their kitchen. They are really close to them. They observe, they listen. They try to understand what are the barriers to unlock, to put these vegetables and plant-based diet in the center of the plate. So this is really a close collaboration, an inclusive way of working we have adopted a long time ago, and that gives us the opportunity to build with our client, with the chef, with the professional, this new cuisine. It means products that are really convenient, accessible, ready to use, not so expensive to make it really easy for them. So it is about product and also about service. And this is the reason why we have created Greenology. 2 years ago, we have launched this new service in France, and we are actually deploying it all across Europe. This service is a support that helps our client, the chef, to shift to this plant-based diet. And this service is based on 4 pillars. First of all, it gives the knowledge of the guests, the clients. Who are these new clients in the restaurant? Who are the vegetarian? Who are the flexitarian? Who are the vegan? What do they want to eat? What are they looking for? This is the first part of this training, this support. The second pillar is about the nutrition, to give them also the knowledge about how do they can they compose a nutritionally balanced menu with the plant-based diet, and also a satiating proposition, and that is also diversified enough to make it really attractive for their clients. So the second part is about nutrition, and the third part is about recipes, inspiration, experimentation. We conduce regularly with our client and with chef sessions, trainings to practice and to discover with them how easy and exciting is this plant-based diet, this plant-based product that gives so many attractivity to their client. So this service is available also by digital tools, by social media, as we know that to increase the impact of this service and to go faster in the education to plant-based diet, we have decided to leverage by the social media. So our culinary advisor visit our client every day. We have already trained more than 500 chefs in France and in other countries in Europe. And by digital, with more than 7,000 chefs that are registered in our service, and every day are looking for support, solution, knowledge, and we are close to them, and we play our role as a key player of this food transition. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for really outlining the kitchen revolution. I think that Greenology is leading, and thanks to Anne-Sophie also for really highlighting the importance of a joint commitment and joint solution finding of all actors in the food chain. Last but not least, I want to give the floor to Jean-François. Please mute your microphones. I want to give the floor to Jean-François. And Jean-François, please enlighten us on how the chef is helping to promote a new system through concrete actions on the ground. Thank you.
Hi. Sorry, it's in the morning here in Montreal, and there's some morning action. So. I want to maybe start by saying that what we've experienced with the pandemic is that we turned around. Normally, we have a food recovery program that's happening with the Leafs and the Canadiens at the Scotiabank Arena. Normally, we would recover about 1,000 meals there to feed people in need through Second Harvest Food Bank in Toronto. There's no fans now, so it's not happening. So we turned around to the community organizations and we asked them what they needed, and they needed prepared meals. So we needed to act and change the way we were addressing that challenge. So we turned around to the situation where we needed to feed how many people. So we turned around to the food banks, and the food banks addressed that there was 400,000 meals needed a month just to provide for the single province of Quebec. And that's on top of whatever was recovered or was distributed to cover food security at this time during the pandemic. So it was a crazy situation. And imagine in March, you don't have anything left from the harvest but roots vegetables. So we needed to turn around to Bonduelle in Canada and ask whatever was available. So there was a huge donation made to us so that we were able to transfer that back. What happened is they closed down the restaurant, as you know, and they closed down the kitchen, the dining rooms, but they didn't close the kitchens, which was, for me, the best way we could address it. So we kept the cooks in the kitchen. We found a way to monetize, to pay them $1 a meal, and we prepped over 3 million meals from March to December with the Solidarity Kitchens. And we transferred all that food that was normally going into the hospitality sector, so food service, every units I was talking about, And we created recipes that would be able then to be transferred in prepared meals and transferred back to cover for this situation. We're still active on that. And I think that's a big part of what was happening. And when you look at the problem, and there's a lot of things that came to my mind from the earlier discussions, is education. There's no way we're going to be able to integrate more vegetable if we don't, at the core, go back to our children. And that's what we do in the second pillar of our actions, is food education, food literacy. So we reach over 4,000 teenagers all across Canada with our Kitchen Brigades program. So we go into schools, we bring a chef, and we cover for 24 weeks different subjects, from food waste to the impact of food on the environment. So it's really important to go in these schools because, you know, they took out, in Canada, they took out home economics, which covered a part of cooking in somewhat that was done for years and generations. They took it out of the school curriculum. So there was no discussion on food in the schools, but eating your lunch at the cafeteria. So we took back these small kitchens that were in all the schools, high schools in the province, and we brought back chefs. We brought back taste, smell, pleasure. It needs to be tasty. We're talking about integrating vegetables. Canada has outlined the food guide. Food guide now in Canada is half vegetable in the plate. That's what it sets for all Canadians. So that's helpful because that helps you introduce less meat and more vegetables. But still, that said, you still need to go into schools. You still need to use the knowledge and the passion and the skills of the chefs to bring that to the children, and then think that you're going to be able to shift a generation and really introduce better eating habits. We see it firsthand. The other aspect of what we're doing is we're introducing it to at-risk youth. And those are more than 5,000 teenagers that come out. I'm just going to put her on my lap so that I'm talking about the future, so you won't mind having this little one. We have young twins, 18 months that we started. They were 7 months at the beginning of the pandemic, and they are eating a lot of vegetables. I just planted the garden over the last weekend. So the importance of at-risk youth, so youth under child protection, eating 3 meals a day in a center, facility, cafeteria, no home meals, no relationship with food other than that plated meal that's served 3 times a day. When you look at that, when are they going to learn, and when are they going to? We bring them to the grocery store for the first time and somewhat at 17 years old. So we need to address that early on. And that's a priority for our government to give us and work with the community sector, cross-collaboration, to really invest in developing the knowledge, the skills, and the contact with food and vegetables, and the impact that they can have on food waste and the environment. It really works. We were active for sure. We needed to change the way we would reach the teenagers. We reached them virtually. They were taking the food at the school in a bag and bring it back home. Reach out to a chef that's virtually accessible. And it worked. But the other problem is that the kids are looking at screens all the time. So you need to build content also. Content needs just to be a workshop done at the school level, but it needs also, why don't we create that's based to sharing these skills, but in a way that we will capture their attention. And at the same time, it will be part of developing this knowledge. So for us right now, we're looking at different ways we can bring that knowledge, putting it very interesting so that they will be interested to look at it. And that comes from taking these children that are most passionate about food and giving them the screen, putting them in front, having them share ideas. So this is really the future, I think. We need to invest in social marketing, and we need to change the way we see the impact, because the difference between the level of money that we have on the social sector to create change, and marketing from the large companies and the sector, the food process, ultra processed food can't compare. So we need all to be together working on this, and be creative in the way we reach the kids, and invest these platforms in a positive way, so they have positive content to look at. And this is what Plantable will be doing for the next 5-10 years. Our strategic plan is to reach the Kitchen Brigades program across Canada. And right now we're in over 200 schools, so reaching over 4,000 teenagers. We think that we might reach 10. Imagine if we can have 10,000 food ambassadors in the high schools. That's powerful, and that can share a strong message, show the other kids in the school, be mobilized and interested in what's happening in the food, in their food system. Thank you.
No, thank you, Jean-François. I mean, it's really inspiring to hear about the real passion you're bringing to the work towards more sustainable food system, and also the commitment that you have on educating your own and also the wider next generation. I want to hear you talk for 2 more hours, but unfortunately I can't. Thank you all for your interventions. There are a few questions in the chat. I suggest that we turn to those. There's a question from Jay Anthony on what initiatives a company like Bonduelle can take to help producers. I think we've actually heard about that in the interventions from Anne-Sophie and Emmanuel, but I'm still going to give them the possibility to add. And if not, I will broaden the question to also add the dimension of, how is Bonduelle helping producers, but also what obstacles are you facing, or do you see in that transition towards more sustainable food systems, and specifically more plant-based diets? Anne-Sophie and Emmanuel. Hang on, you're still on mute.
Voilà. Okay, you can hear me. Thanks for this question, very interesting one. Of course, I think that there is something that everybody must be aware of. 2 things I've raised a different question. First of all, I think that we have to find the right balance. As Bonduelle, we are not opposed to the meat consumption, of course. We are not going to say that we are going to stop eating meat. We are talking about the right balance between plant-based food and protein, animal and vegetal proteins, this kind of things. So we will need to find a way to re-articulate it in the right way, and to help all the agriculture system, because there is no food without agriculture, of course, but to adapt little by little the agriculture system. Let's keep in mind that since a few years already, we have made a big progress and a big effort, including in the large-scale agriculture, in order to improve the process and the practice. I think there is something which is key. It will take a few years. Just for you to know, a crop rotation in agriculture, it takes 4 or 5 years. And it means that we are going to adjust, and we are working now for the coming generation. We are aware that we have to adjust it for the 20, 30 coming years. So we are going to move little by little, and we are not going to change immediately. We mentioned it many times. I think that we all have a part to play. So the education, you just mentioned it, that's true, Jean-François. Education is key. The kids is key. So we have to work together with education in the different countries. We have to work together with many stakeholders, and we have to prepare now this required change to little by little set up some kind of 10 years plan to be prepared to make this food system evolve. I think that the scale and the, let's say, mid-term scale is a reality. We will not be able to do it in a very short term. Of course, we have some local initiative, very virtuous today, especially in the cities and so on, and so that's great. But be aware that to be able to feed at a large scale all the population with some more plant-based diet, it will take some time for sure.
Thank you, Anne-Sophie. I'm taking another question in the interest of time. There's a great question by Alicia Novak as well, specifically on the role of education. Alicia says that there is a reason why people believe that meat-based protein are necessary in everyday diets. I think we all see that. We all receive that through our education and preconceived ideas that came from there. Alicia's question is, how can we really change the narrative and push governments on the one hand and educational organizations on the other hand to implement a change towards healthier guidelines? I think I want to address that question to Eve and afterwards potentially also to Jean-François if he wants to add anything.
Sorry, yes. So the question is how to push governments towards more plant-based food and the food transition.
Yes,
is that it?
Yes, but specifically from an educational perspective, and to really turn the shift around that we still have, a lot of us still have the preconceived idea that you need meat-based protein at the center of your plate to have a balanced meal.
Well, it was what I was trying to mention also. We have to find ways to make vegetables and legumes more trendy, more prestigious, more fashionable, and I think there are many ways to do this. And in education, in particular, I think Jean-François has mentioned many examples of reintroducing kitchens in schools. I would say reintroducing gardens also in schools, and to learn to the little children how to a food product, a raw agricultural product is produced, and then the kitchen and all the transformation. But I'm not sure this will be very difficult to convince government to do this. Convincing governments to shift from pesticides, from mineral fertilizers, for ultra-processed food, this will be much more difficult because there are a lot of lobbying behind. So that is a transition that will be much more difficult to handle, but well, I think I will leave the floor to Jean-François.
I think it's really it's not going to be done. It's not going to be done in a short window. I think it needs to come from the chefs too. It needs to come from introducing into our habits. But if you want to introduce, it needs to be done in a positive way. When you look at I was talking about the kids from child protection, the first time they had a steak or first time they had, they taste something, maybe it wasn't positive because it wasn't done in a way that it could be appreciated, or because it was done, there was screamed at, or there was violence in there. So the context is very different from a person to another. The experience needs to be positive. And I think that tasting something from a chef, or even from yourself, if you learn from a chef, but then you create something by yourself, you see the power of that. You see it instantly. When a kid creates a recipe, he wants to taste it. Even though it's not perfect, he's going to be proud. So, and then chances are it's going to be introduced into his routine. So I think there's plenty of access to vegetables. You can grow your own vegetables. It's easily accessible. Then the transition is really, how do we make these vegetables tasty? How do we get the kids to go at it, try them, cook them properly? That's the trick with those 18 months. When you cook the broccoli and they're still crunchy, they're tasty. And just, pinch of salt, not too much. But there's ways to introduce and make it a fun, and that's the fun, pleasure, taste is all about the success. If we are able to prove that, we will transition.
And I think also while stressing at the same time that all vegetables are equally worthy, right? Not only the perfectly shaped ones, but also the weirdly shaped ones. They're all the same. They're all the same vegetables, and they all deserve the same amount of respect from consumers. on our plate. Thank you all for taking the time. I'm gonna wrap this up because I think the session will automatically close in exactly 1 minute, and I would just want to take that 1 minute to thank the panelists for their interventions. I think the panelists have demonstrated that it's essential to move towards more plant-based diets, and that to achieve that we need a real commitment from all of the actors in the food chain, from the farm to the fork, as we say. Starting with the producers on the one hand, who have to adopt more sustainable agriculture, to manufacturers like Bonduelle, who must commit and who commit to raising awareness with their consumers on the one hand, and with the professionals that they work with on the other hand. Consumers, who need to veg up or green up, however you want to say it, their meals, whilst at the same time being aware of the reasons why, and also being aware of the contributions and the efforts that are made upstream by the actors in the food chain. So once again, thanks all for your time, for your contributions, your interventions. I hope you found this workshop useful, and I wish you a very constructive rest of the Change Now event. Thank you very much.